Hi guys, welcome to Bitcoin Bankers. Today have a bit of a look at Bitcoin. Haven't done a video for a little while because things are still kind of moving all over the place, but we've been seeing it start to move down now. So let's take a look at Bitcoin today. I want to clarify a couple of little things as well on what people think is bullish and bearish markets, what crashes to compared to corrections, things like that. So I won't waste too long, just mainly going to look at Bitcoin, have a quick look at Ethereum, maybe Cardano and that as well. Okay, so let's get on. Okay guys, so it's another cold wet day in Melbourne lockdown yet again, lockdown number 5.0, getting sick of this crap, and a lot of businesses are running into a lot of serious trouble. We've got all sorts of things going on globally. We have the West picking fights with Asian countries, China specifically. A lot of destabilizing elements going on out there. There's also your usual FUD stories, but as I said before, I don't really pay attention to FUD. It's really not worth your while. Sometimes it's worth having a bit of a look at, but don't waste your time too much. Now let's have a look at the daily here. We're looking at Bitcoin, and we still see this sort of head and shoulders pattern. It's kind of starting to change a little bit. We still have this kind of high shoulder here. It's run up with your head formation. It's dropped down, and it's just been ranging in this area that, I drew this line right at the very beginning of this and said we're probably going to be playing around that. It has certainly played out that way. Yesterday we've just broken under this support line here. However, given my stochastic, which I do rely on a little bit, but it's not always that reliable when there's big rushes up and big rushes down, okay? So I use it more of a point to say, it helps me sort of find bottom ranges a little bit more and when to sort of get back into a trade. However, everyone is right on the brink of sort of deciding, are we going bullish now? Are we going to have a big breakdown? To be honest with you, I'd be very careful if you're deciding at getting in at this point here when we're just breaking a support. Now, we could very easily just have a bit of a fake out and it shoots back up and sort of tries to attack this price range over here again, which is probably likely at this point. The daily is starting to sort of turn down a little bit, and that's because the hourly has started to reach a bit of a top. The 4 hourly, which we're going to have a look at as well, have a look at a lot of the time frames, is they're all kind of just a little bit out of whack with each other. Okay, so we still have this head and shoulders. No one has really talked about this during the whole time that this has been going on, and you got to look at the head and shoulders and say, well, what does that? Well, what can that mean? Head and shoulders can usually be a bit of a bearish symbol, but the question is, are we really in a bear market? Are we in a bear trend? Are we having a crash, or are we having a correction? Okay, my point of view is we are in a bear trend during a correction phase. Okay, I do not believe it's a bear market. I don't believe that Bitcoin has crashed, and I don't believe that we are in any kind of spiraling to zero. I think it's just complete nonsense. Okay. Now, I said in a previous video as well, what's the difference between a correction and a crash? Okay, crashes, in my opinion, crashes occur when the overall fundamentals of a market are really bad. And use the GFC as your prime example. Okay. That was a crash because the fundamentals, banks were loaning to people who couldn't afford the loans. People were, hedging, deliberately hedging and shorting. A lot of the big billionaire hedgers and that were deliberately anticipating that these loans and things could not be affordable for the market, and eventually everything gave way. The fundamentals were weak. It broke down, and there was a loss of confidence. Okay, that is not happening in Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the fundamentals are probably stronger than they've ever been. Bitcoin, because of its design and the way that it is been structured from the beginning, is extremely fundamentally strong. Uh, it has weathered a whole lot of attacks from the global cartel, money cartel, as well as other countries like China booting out their miners and these sorts of things. So there's been a whole lot of things going on, and Bitcoin has always weathered that pretty well. In fact, that most of the mining is now moved down to China is a good thing, and they're moving to other smaller countries, and those countries will start to build and develop Bitcoin even better, and probably be more protective of it, because they're going to be more reliant on it. Okay, as far as all this garbage about Bitcoin being environmentally bad, well, when you compare Bitcoin to every other industry on the planet, it is the least harmful. Look at mining. Look what mining does to countries. Look how the mining companies deal with those companies. They leave the pollution all over the place and take off when they're finished. They leave waterways and fisheries polluted. They leave forestry is completely decimated. They dig big holes in the ground to get all the minerals and just draw everything healthy that's there out of that land. You have the money cartel. How much power does it take to run every bank around the planet, to maintain all the energy, to run all their transaction systems, ATMs, all that sort of thing? It's all way beyond what Bitcoin consumes. Okay, so that's another bullshit argument out the window. You can go into a lot of more of what I'm saying through your own research. I'm just generalizing for the sake of time. Now, looking at this head and shoulders here, it is a bearish pattern. Bitcoin does not look fundamentally, price-wise, does not look good. It looks like it could sort of have this big breakdown and descent into temporary madness. Two likely areas of breakdown are here. Okay, and the other one would be here. They're two strong kind of levels, right? Generally speaking, I might fix this one up a little. It's a bit crooked. There we are. Yeah, so we're in this range here. We're breaking out now. Could have a bit of a fake out, and it might try to fight back. And I think everyone will probably get enthusiastic and go, "Oh yeah," and then it can really give way, or it can just sort of continually. If you have a look at this recent sort of breakdown, that's a complete lack of sort of buyers' momentum or buyers' confidence in wanting to get in right now. But that does not mean it's fundamentally bad. Okay, it just means that basically everyone's waiting on the sidelines to buy cheaper Bitcoin, and then we go off. This is not fundamentally bearish for Bitcoin. This is just price. It's price action, and it's basically saying we're not getting in until we see some signs that Bitcoin has reversed and started to turn. So if you have a look at the moving averages here that are above through with this ribbon, they're all getting pretty heavy and just really looking very bearish. But again, it's a bear trend. It is not a bear market. That's my opinion. I think a lot of people sort of agree with that, because you can have a bear trend, which is more or less a correction. Corrections occur when a price, an asset has literally overheated and just been bought into far too much. You had FOMO, and we all remember what happened through this sort of phase here when it just took off. It just shocked everyone. And I think we're going to have this again when we come out of this. I think we're going to see this kind of thing happen again. It's going to be pretty exciting when that happens. So don't lose any faith. But me personally, I'm not actually holding any Bitcoin at the moment. I'm just waiting for a better price. And I think that's what everybody's waiting for. You do get people that basically get impatient and try to buy in and push the price up. But you can see, that's happened a few times, and momentum just dies off. The momentum is not strong. So it's best to just wait. If you are sitting in Bitcoin and you're just hodling for a long time, you've got nothing to worry about. Okay. Price could drop down. I don't think it would really go any lower than maybe 24. I think that's probably more likely. But now that introduces a segue for me to say what normally happens after a Head and Shoulders. Okay, so let's go back and have a look at Bitcoin and see if we can find a Head and Shoulders. Okay, now there is one. I'm looking at one right now. I don't know if you can see it. I'll just spread it out a little bit, and it's right in here in this region. Look at this. You got the head. Right, you got the shoulder here, and you got a shoulder sort of on this side of it, or you could call it this one here if you like, a little bit of a lower shoulder. Came up, pulled down, come up, down, and then we hit this point here and ran into the moving averages, and then we had this here is COVID. Okay, so this is more exaggerated than it would have been. Probably would have come down like this if COVID didn't happen. It could have probably had a bit of a drop, and then maybe sort of found support around this level, but COVID just pushed it down further. So at the end of the day, you did get these pretty big drops. Now this drop here, let's see, this whole thing actually was 54%. If we take it from the shoulder here, 47%. So it's still around about a 45 to 50% drop. Okay, if it wasn't COVID and it was just something, just a regular Head and Shoulders, probably would have been looking at 23, 24% most likely. That's my estimation of it. So you can see how these things can sort of play out, that they do get bearish. Now the interesting thing about this is that, and this is in that period from 2020 to between January and March there. Now the interesting thing about this is that this was a black swan event. Yeah, it came out of the blue. It really just knocked the market. The market was, pretty much fundamentally strong anyway, and then it's just come along and decimated everything. We're in a situation now where there are a lot of, COVID's still going, and there's talk of, possible Cold Wars and things going on in the background with China and cyber attacks, things like that. But there could be, and we also have the Delta strain sort of moving stronger, somehow flaring up everywhere, all over the world at the same time, which is interesting. So at the end of the day, we could be looking at another kind of black swan event just around the corner. And if you go back to the GFC as well, it was sort of June, July, August when that whole system just started melting down. It was over that period. And we're right in the heart of that period now. So, history does tend to repeat itself. So we just got to be aware that these things, political events, could trigger a snap drop. I really don't think that we're going to really have a big bounce back up to 40,000 or anything like that right now. I think it has to come down before it goes up. Okay, now we might just get it's been really staggered, and which has been showing that there's been a lot of buying by institutions in this area. It's been holding itself pretty strong, but eventually it has just broken down. People are just holding off until they get some clear signals, and that's what you really want to do. You want to wait for some clear signals. You want to see this thing really sort of break out and just shake it off, and I really think that can only happen with a good final clear out of sell orders and grab some buys along the way. Once it breaks down and does, the problem with this is that the momentum like this can go for some time. So it's possible it could go down to maybe 22 at the lowest. I still have a little bit of trouble thinking it's going this low to give my indicators and things, but it's very, very likely. Then I think we might get support up around this area and then maybe start building up. Now, because this support here has been so strong, it's now going to provide a lot of resistance for us if Bitcoin still has a little bit of that lackluster drive. If people are still uncertain about what's going on, but I don't think it'll last that long. I was watching another video earlier on with people talking about a V-shaped recovery, and that gives it massive momentum to buy up. And given the number of buy orders that are down under sort of the $28,000 mark, I think it'll probably grab a lot, but we just need this real big clear out, sort of clearing house, sort of push down to just break the whole, we're not getting in yet kind of attitude that's out there at the moment in the market. We need this big sort of flashbang to just give everyone a bit of a shock and say, okay, let's jump in, and you'll see a lot of people jumping in around this sort of point. So let's go to the weekly. I know I'm gibbering on about a lot of political stuff and things like that. The weekly, you can see the head and shoulders pattern's a little bit stronger here. You can see it, and now it's just really losing momentum. So we do have this support around this sort of $25,000 mark. I can't really see it stopping in the middle of the air here. I just don't see that. You've got to sort of find some areas of support and reasons for finding new support. And I think this region around here, 25, 26, is pretty strong. So that could be enough for Bitcoin to just sort of sit here and then start popping up. Okay, so if you have a look at True Strength Index, still a fair bit to go here. It's still representing that sort of lackluster attitude. Your stochastic RSI, it's still sort of just bottoming out and really not going anywhere. This can continue on for a fair while longer, but it just depends on what happens in this range, because this will be the next range likely to hit. We could very easily turn around and just take off from here, but I think that's really unlikely. If we go to the monthly, we still see that the monthly has quite a fair bit of time and momentum to keep going down, but support is pretty strong. So it's going to be a battle of support versus lackluster attitude, momentum, things like that. If we get a black swan event, like this is the COVID black swan event in March, if we get something like that, they can definitely push it right down and just shock a lot of people. I think Bitcoin's going to surprise and shock a lot of people over the next, from now to the next 12 months. And that's a 50% drop that we saw before. Now could we get something like that? It's unlikely, but not that big. But 50%, bring it down to here, bring it down to 14,000. Is there room on the monthly for this to happen? Absolutely there is. Is it likely to happen? Well, even if it did, you'd still see this run back up. It would just clear a lot out, take a lot of orders, and just sort of bounce back up, and then you'd have this sort of leveling out, and off we go again. So I do not think that Bitcoin will go to zero. I don't think it's going back, anywhere. It's unlikely it'll go below 20, but on the larger time scales, look, it can just sort of drop back to the $13,000, $15,000 range USD, which is about 18,000 Australian dollars. And you've got to be prepared for that. That could happen. It's just a big flash bang. It could be someone accidentally triggering a small sort of war scenario. At the moment in Australia we have Chinese vessels sitting off our coast doing spy work on our training exercises. It wouldn't be hard for something to go wrong there. Australia has a lot of ships, and so does the US have ships sort of out in the sea outside China in the China Sea region, watching what they're doing. So everyone's watching each other, waiting for something. You have the cyber security stuff going on. So there could be some kind of flashbang event that just triggers markets and everything to sell off. But that's a pretty small chance of that happening in the next month or 2 weeks. But you never know. You never know what they have planned, and you never know what can happen by accident. Just got to be ready. So I don't know. I mean, is there manipulation in the market? Of course. Would a lot of people stand to make a lot of opportunity by getting Bitcoin down to this level here? Absolutely. So these things can happen, but I just think they're unlikely. We just got to keep watching. Just be patient. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't speculate on things that get more and more wild. A lot of people are out there speculating on Cardano hitting $100 before the end of the year. It's not going to go from $1 to $100 in 3 months. I don't think that's going to happen. It just, it just can't happen like that all the time. Bitcoin, it even took Bitcoin. Let's see, run the monthly. So it took it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months to go from 6,000 to 60,000. That's a 10x move in 12 months. So thinking that Cardano is going to go 100x, in 3 months, guys, you got to stop listening to that shit. Don't believe that bullshit. Things can happen, but it's not that much. It's just not going to happen. We'll look at Cardano soon. So this is the monthly, and you just got to keep these things in mind. We're just starting to break this range now, and we're going to have to see what would encourage the momentum for this to slide down and sort of look like it's losing control. Like I said, we're probably going to see some big moves down, and then we'll see some big moves up. Either way, these moves are going to scare a lot of people from Bitcoin. But those of us who believe it and love it are going to really enjoy ourselves. So that's Bitcoin. Let's have a quick look on the lower time scale, the 4 hour. It's building a bit of momentum again. She's bottomed out, had a big move away from the moving averages. It's coming back now. It wants to try and fill this space up. It's got to pass over this bottom of this triangle here. That's why I think we might have a little bit of a fake out. Maybe it'll try and come back up. I don't think it'll get up there. It might get up here, move along and go down, or we could just get here and drop down. So your 2 scenarios at the moment. With the 4 hour, there's just not a lot of momentum in this to even get very far at all. So I'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. Is it safe to take a trade? I probably wouldn't at the moment. Maybe hold off. It is tempting, but it's really not a good opportunity to be jumping in when you're facing this much resistance at the moment, with not a lot of momentum sort of behind it. That's Bitcoin. Let's have a quick look at Ethereum. So Ethereum pretty much doing the same thing, even on the stochastic, just trying to fight off this push down. Let's go to the 4 hour. Again, almost similar to Bitcoin. It has broken out of the triangles, continuing its way down. Making this big kind of, when you see these big bowing ranges, they can tend to sort of have a bit of a shoot back up and try and test this previous sort of resistance here. So, we might get a bit of a move out of Bitcoin, Ethereum. Might get something that could move up this high, but probably more around this range here. Maybe 1939, maybe $130 move. It's possible. It's certainly possible. Just have to wait and see how things go, what the momentum is, you know what I mean? Probably not the best time to be taking trades right now, guys. If you're going long, you always want to wait until you're sort of breaking above this ribbon and sort of have more of a trend. Let a trend identify itself, okay? Don't worry about missing out on trying to pick a bottom. You do not want to pick a bottom when an asset is doing this, okay? Yes, we have this W formation, but you've got to realize how strong the resistance is here above it before it can really break through. And the attitude of the market has to be positive as well, and it's just not positive enough for a short term for this to be breaking through. Okay, so you want to just be careful. Like I said, it's just not a time where I'm going to be sort of jumping in the market. I'm just waiting patiently, man, to see what happens. I need some verification. I need some signs to see that the attitude of the bull has changed. Now, we're all bullish, and there's a lot of bulls sitting to the side, and sometimes a lot of the FOMO can just trigger as soon as this takes off, but you've really got to be careful on that. You want to use your tools, use your stochastics, whatever other tools you might use. You might use the TD sequential, which I normally sort of use. I haven't used it for a little while because I'm just getting used to using these charts now and seeing what this is telling me. I've learned a lot, but just by watching without having 1,000 indicators there. It has broken out of the channel, so it's going to have to fight really hard to get back in. I think eventually it can do that, and then once we get in here, we're talking later this year, the next few months, if it can fight hard enough to get back up here, we might be all right. The problem is this. We're going to the monthly. And you can see stochastic it's still way overbought. There's a large gap between sort of the current price and just the top of this moving average here. Usually they like to close those gaps and find some support on this area. Still a fair bit. The true strength and your stochastic look pretty negative. So I'd be careful about buying into Ethereum at the moment. This is a long term, so we could still be seeing longer term sell-offs now. Maybe for Ethereum, maybe back. This is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but $1,200 mark for Ethereum US, maybe around, depending how quickly we drop from now till then, maybe September. You might see a little bit more come down, and then if it gets support there, we can actually move this over. We can even move this over like this now on the monthly. And you can see, it's still pretty much in range. It still has a chance to shoot up, but 10,000 is my ultimate target there for the next sort of 12 months or 6 months for Ethereum. See if we can hit it. Okay, the weekly for Ethereum. I know I skipped over it, but it's just when you see indicators sort of doing this. Yes, it looks like it's going to curl up around, but it's just not a lot of. This doesn't give me a lot of confidence. This kind of shape formation that it takes here. If you have a look at this one, it's doing the same thing here. It came down, they look like they're crossing over, but ultimately the price still came down. There was no positive we had a bit of a pump here, so I might get a bit of a pump again, but ultimately it just still kept dropping off and fading. So you've got to be careful what your indicators are actually telling you. You have to really pay attention and sort of get used to it by back testing and trying to find those similar reactions at previous times. Okay. Let's have a quick look at Cardano, because this is getting a little bit long now for people. Alright. I'll summarize at the end. So once again, it's broken out of the channel. It's not looking too good. I don't like these sorts of formations where they sort of flat, go up, dump, just losing a lot of momentum. On the weekly though, it's not looking as bad as Ethereum on the weekly. It's just look like it's got a nice kind of fall down, slide, maybe turn back up. It's a little bit more, looking at the stochastic is a little bit smoother and nicer than Ethereum was, but the price action isn't. Ethereum's price action was a bit better. Cardano's price action, not so good for me at the moment. Let's go to a smaller actual, look at the monthly. Yeah, not a lot to say on the monthly. There's just not enough information there. That could be well overbought. We just don't know. On the daily's looking pretty good on the stochastic. We have this very spread out W. We might get a bit of a sort of pump up on the daily, but again, it's very reliant on Bitcoin and what happens to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin just ended up crashing, and this is there's really not a lot of support here. The next sort of area of support is down here at 44 cents. So Cardano could be in a little bit of trouble if it doesn't start picking up and trying to find its way back into an area of good support, because it's literally just broken previous support here. There's your absolute bottom previous support. Same with this region. So it's really under threat at the moment. It's in a bit of danger. So but the daily's looking pretty good. If we go to the 4 hour, again 4 hours looking reasonably bullish, but given the market that we're in, a lot of people are very hesitant about getting in because it's just so much risk. This is a very high risk area to be getting in. Okay. You really want to see it. The thing is, by the time it gets up here and all these sort of curl around and there's some bullish action, by the time it gets up here, it's already starting to hit into this previous resistance here. It's probably sort of expended itself a little bit, so you have to really judge the market and judge your tools and see where you're at. You also want to see the momentum. You can certainly sort of take a bit of a risk. It's going to be a big risk, but you can jump in here, you know what I mean? And would that be 11 cents? It's a 4.5% move, but you'd want to have like, maybe 100 sort of coins to make it worth your while, sort of thing, you know what I mean? But it is looking relatively bullish. Again, just a very dangerous area to be sort of jumping into. You know what I mean? So, but there's certainly more time if you want to try and make a small window trade on that. You might be able to. I'd sort of have your target set around here. That might get you something. You know what I mean? So it's 7, so it might get you 5%. There's a possibility for that. A bit high risk, but looking okay. So that's the main ones, guys. Let's have a quick look at the US stock market. There's some really weird shit going on here. Let's go to the daily. I think essentially it's kind of running out of steam. It's starting to break down. It had a big dump here the other day. It's closing the gap now, but I don't think it has the momentum to sort of break new highs. I think this is probably going to come up. Another little double top. Maybe, I don't think it'll even make the top. It might get up to about here and probably just start waning off again. We might get a bit more of a dump down in the stock market. Again, stock market sort of does its own thing. It's in its own little world, but it is influenced by decisions made by cartels, global money cartels, and other factors. So Bitcoin currently, the price is still sort of creeping up very, very slightly, but that's probably because the stock markets around the world are responding kind of similar. Actually, that's one thing we should have a look at too. I'll look at that in a minute. The weekly for the stock market, it's the US stock market. Look, it's been very bullish, very bullish. We thought it would have a bit of a dump down here. It didn't come. It was actually just sort of this area, just above it, starts what I said. Got a bit of a reversal here, so it might sort of look like it's got some more momentum to go, but I don't know. I think might probably come up and try and test this again, but I think we might sort of have a bit of a downturn over the next few weeks in the market, stock market monthly. Is that worth looking at? Yeah, look very slow, this one, but it's starting to move away from the moving averages a bit, but it is getting this hyperbolic kind of curvature now, so we could see the stock market sort of come down a bit and then really start to just go vertical. It's really getting that momentum now, starting to go hyperbolic. Pretty crazy, but this is what the stock market's done over all these years. I mean, we can go right back, and when you're putting on this angle, it doesn't look small, but the more you squash it up, that's a massive run in 100 years. Actually this is about 1950. This is post-war, and it's just gone up. Let's have a look. So if we go post-war, let's go post-war, 46, 45. The war ended in 45. We'll give it a bit of time. I'll take it from here. It's 49, June 49. So it's up, what's that, it's at 28,000. Yeah, so in 70 years, the stock market has gone up 28,000%. It's had some corrections and things, it's had your dips and stuff, but it's just been going up and up and up and up and up for 70 years. So if you think about people like Hathaway Berkshire, who got in long ago, way back here, all these people, their entire lives have just had privilege. Their entire lives has just gone up and up and up and up. They're buying shares back in the 50s and 60s here, and they've just held on to half of them, and bought in new ones as they come along. So when they see Bitcoin coming along and threatening this sort of stuff, they're not going to like it very much. It's like, they get on their little ponies and run around waving some of their silly little flags and complaining because something might be interrupting their little 70-year run with the 28,000%. So Bitcoin has actually matched that same thing, if not far more, in 12 years, which is about here. This is where Bitcoin came in. Yeah? And it's basically done this whole move in the same amount, or in this amount of time, 2009, 2010. So, this is why they're feeling threatened. This is why they want to protect their precious little market that they own. They don't want something new coming in that they just don't understand at all. because once the attention moves away from this globally and moves into a new asset, new money, new styles of things, then this goes away. Everything they've spent their entire lives building is gone. It just breaks down. A lot of the younger generations, the X Gen, the Y Gen, the Z Gen, especially the Z Gen or Z Gen, moving away from stock markets. They're not really looking at it. They're looking at property, or trying to get into property. They're looking at cryptocurrencies a lot because it's far more affordable for them. And that's where the future's going. So eventually this will just die, because this is all based on a fiat currency. Okay? It's based on a fiat currency that is about to hyperinflate, because it's just been pumped and printed to death. There's just so much of it going around. It's just ridiculous, you know. And sooner or later, it has to end. You know, things have to end. But you know, the people that control this kind of market, you know, give themselves money for science development so they can extend their lives and keep this going. They don't want to leave this, but they got no choice. You can't live forever, you know. But they're doing everything they can to keep the market going, to keep themselves wealthy and push out any other competition. They've run the US dollar. The US dollar's been around, well, at least the latest one, since 1933. You know, it's now been almost 90 years. 91 years that the US dollar's sort of been pumped out and printed more times than it ever should have been. They just did a $6 trillion pump recently. You know, so how much of that has been created from here to here? There's just ridiculous, copious amounts that have basically been pumped into countries and companies and has helped build Dubai in the Middle East, and destroy half the Middle East while building the other half, and built China. The US dollar built China. The US dollar built a whole lot of things. The oil industry, the mining industry, everything. So, you know, do you think about how much that is at stake there? And now Bitcoin comes along here and basically does 6 million % growth in the same time. It's undermining everything that these guys have built. This is why they hate Bitcoin. It's not because it's, skeptical. It might be, what do they call it? Volatile. It's too volatile. Well, this is volatile. Look, up, down, up, down. There's 50 times when it's gone down about 30 to 50%. This is just as volatile. But they control it. They can't control Bitcoin. Okay? They can control their market influence. They can't control influence on Bitcoin, apart from putting out fear and things like that. Anyway, that's my rant. I better stop now. But you see my point. You see where I'm going with this. So it's very important that you understand the battle between a new rising cryptocurrency and the long established, paper money that is basically, flooded the planet to build everything that they have made for themselves and given. This is why they give themselves wealth, because they pretty much own this shit, man. It's theirs. It's not ours. Look on your dollar bill. It says property of the Federal Reserve, not property of Frank Jones. You know what I mean? It's theirs. Everything we use is theirs. Okay, that's just the way it is. Because they have had the advantage of coming before us and building all this up, and they like to praise themselves. They are the money gods. They are the wealth gods, and they want everyone to follow them and worship them. That's why they get all the millionaire superstars on their side. We'll make you richer than you can ever believe as long as you worship us and lead everyone else to worship the money gods. But the money gods are dying. We've seen numerous times, even through Greek history, they said we don't need gods anymore. We don't need the image of the gods to make us feel better or make us feel insignificant or make us feel whatever. We have our own destiny. And this is the cusp that we're at right now. The Z generation, they're seeing a new opportunity, and they're saying, we don't need these old money gods. We're making our own path. We have our own destiny. Okay, they're feeling helpless because they can't afford property. I'm an ex-gen. I can't afford property that much either, really. And they can't afford a lot of things. It's getting harder and harder to buy things. You know, we're in a more restricted world. We're on prison planet, man. The only difference between us and someone in prison is that we're allowed to go outside to get food, and we have a nicer cell. It's the only difference. You know, we're under lockdown controls, we're under public orders that allow you out for 5 reasons only. Inflation's going up, money's working, people aren't working, businesses are shutting down. You know, younger people can't afford to get property. Right. And what's sitting at the heart of all this is Bitcoin. This different thing that has suddenly emerged, okay? And emerged at a very interesting time too. So, you know, someone is steering us into a new pathway for the next generation. All this is going to go. What happens here in the stock market, all this sort of, this current oil-driven, mining-driven age, you know, the age of corporate globalism is coming to an end. A new one will start. You'll probably still see similar features of it, but something new is starting to birth. And in order for that to grow, the old has to be uprooted and broken away, you know, and that the old will become mulch and fuel and food for the new one that comes up. Okay. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. I've talked and babbled on too long. I'm trying to generalize and keep things short. Anyway, please like, please subscribe, share it around, and I'll see you next time. This is Bitcoin Bankers, and we'll try and do a video when some of these things, the big changes happen, if they happen. Bitcoin might not drop. We'll have to wait and see. Just be safe, be smart. Cheers.